In the latest installment of What Happened in an Election That Occurred a year and a half ago, Michelle Obama was asked how Trump won, and she laid the blame on Hillary. Just kidding. She blamed sexism from women against women.
In light of this last election, I'm concerned about us as women and how we think. If we're not comfortable with the notion that a woman could be our president compared to what? You know, we have to have that conversation with ourselves as women.
Maybe so, but her analysis seems a symptom of a greater problem that contributed to her party's loss. It goes back to seeing the group and not the person. I call it IPB, identity politics blindness. They lost not because Hillary was a woman. They lost because all they saw was a woman. Meanwhile, Trump took nothing for granted. Fact is, many voters would have happily voted for a woman. Just not that one, because unlike Trump, she didn't speak to their concerns. She only spoke of her entitlement. She just assumed that she had the vote. And just assuming a woman must vote for a woman seems pretty insulting from a man. Humans are more complex, surprising, and interesting than liberals give them credit for. But more than anything, Trump's election is a lesson in effort. At least he showed up. He fought. Hillary didn't. If Democrats learn from that, then they can win. But if they continue to dwell in this narrow-minded, intolerant universe where all people sit in their own identity buckets, where their behavior is fixed forever by sex or race, they will lose. And then what group will they blame next? What do you think, Kimberly? Do you think that Michelle Obama would feel differently if she were a left-wing woman? It's not really about gender.
No, I don't think it's really about gender. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's about the candidate. It's about people making a choice based on the qualifications, the merit of the candidacy, and what you saw during this past election that people related. The working men and women across the country felt that this was a movement they wanted to be part of the Trump campaign and movement across the country to let the blue-collar workers, families, middle class not be left behind. Now, if a fantastic female candidate who went out there and campaigned and hit all the spots you were supposed to actually spoke to the people in that way, I 100% believe they could prevail. Perhaps someday Michelle Obama will run for office. I think she would do quite well. Or if Oprah Winfrey ran for office, she would probably do quite well. So it really is just like a measure of what you have to offer, what's going on in the country at the time, how you speak to the issues. And Hillary has given quite a few excuses as to why she did not prevail in the campaign. And one of the latest that we discussed on this show was she said that she felt that people thought she was a capitalist, they didn't relate to her. Well, perhaps that's the case. She did not make the case to the everyday man and woman effectively or persuasively enough to get them to choose her.
Dana, thoughts as a woman, not as a human being, but as a woman, because all we see are...
Let me out of my bucket.
Yes. You can't see out of it.
I think there's an interesting debate about demographics going on right now on Twitter, but basically saying that, you know, for a long time, demographers have been saying, look, the country is changing, and the Democrats are going to run away with this if the Republicans don't figure this out. And that it's been going on for like 26 years, and it hasn't happened. Maybe it will happen in the future. But at the same time, the sand is shifting beneath the Democrats' feet, and there is a new coalition that was built in 2016, and I don't see what the Democrats are doing to try to win back the blue-collar workers. We have a segment coming up in the E-Block talking about economics, which is something really that is quite remarkable what the left is coming up with when it comes to talking about capitalism or not. But the other thing is, I would say the Republicans are probably not doing enough yet to figure out how to keep that coalition in their corner.
Yeah, Juan, we always get into this little tiff. I say humans are more complex and interesting than identity politics would supply. And you say, but we do the same thing, or the Republicans do the same thing.
Oh, I think we're in an era of white identity politics as represented by President Trump that we've never seen like in this country. But anyway, I want to come to this point that I think that what Michelle Obama said really appeals to the basis of your argument, Greg, because she said this was about credentials, that, you know, clearly we had the better credentialed experience in terms of preparing to be president candidate, and look what you guys elected. You guys someone who has no experience, who's chaotic, impulsive, and all the rest. So, and remember, you got 52% of white women who voted for Trump, and she's saying, why is that? And previously, you know, Mrs. Obama has said, you know, you can't wait for the next person to save you. You got to do it yourself. And women who are voting against women because they're a woman or don't trust a woman, there's something negative in there.
You guys are making this way too complex. President Obama left very popular, but his policies weren't. For 8 years, people were frustrated. He wasn't tapped in. People weren't motivated. All he did was gradually lose the entire party and not fund the DNC and build himself up. People like him. They didn't like his administration. They didn't like the way he was executed. Nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman. If you put Tulsi Gabbard against Nikki Haley, it's game on. It's someone who's a veteran that understands people, that has a lot to offer, be something totally different. She did not lose because she was a woman. She didn't get a vote because she was a woman. By the end of it, it was two candidates, and they took the person that they thought would be the most dramatically different from President Obama, and they got it.
You're absolutely right. And that's a good head-to-that you just brought up, by the way.
That's going to be the future. Can we save this show?
Yes.
We tape it on VHS?
No. Any show you're on, we burn.
That hurts my feelings.
It's by law. It's in our law. It's in our bylaws.
Yeah, the Justice Department approved it.
In that case, we got a bonfire because he's on a lot of shows.
I know.
5 bylaws.
So as President Trump looms large over tomorrow night's primaries, as pretty much documented by the Red Hat that you just saw, a new book is asking some really interesting questions about the 2016 win. Was it just a fluke, as some pundits have indicated, or does it represent a fundamental electoral shift in our nation's politics that could impact tomorrow night's elections and perhaps all of American politics for many years to come? The book is called The Great Revolt: Inside the Populist Coalition, Reshaping American Politics, and its authors, Selena Zito and Brad Todd, join me now. Great to have both of you with us. You documented 2016 in depth, picking up on some of these trends before they really surfaced on election night and surprised a whole lot of people. So let me ask you first, just, as you listen to that discussion about these primaries tonight, this is what's brewing out in the country. What is your handle on what might happen based on what you've been seeing? Selena?
Well, so I think it's really interesting, and Brad and I were talking about this before we went on, is that everyone's trying to sort of grab the mantle of the Donald Trump candidate. They're trying to pick a portion that they think that they reflect the most about his candidacy. And I think that tells you a lot about the electorate, that it's still sort of unsettled and that it is still against the status quo, and it is interested in disrupting what's going on in elections, and it's not willing to listen to what Washington is telling them.
I mean, if you listen to the folks on the Democrats, more liberal side of the fence, Brad, they think this presidency is a disaster, and they think that there's going to be a huge blue wave coming. So is what you guys document in this book something that is going to continue to impact these politics? Are they right, or are you guys right?
Well, you see in the Ohio governor's race, the two Democrats, might be described as nuttier, and so I think the Democrats have been radicalized in this process. But if the reason for our book, I think if you didn't see the Trump wave coming, if you didn't see this coalition, this fusion of populists and conservatives, which changed the Republican Party and changed the kind of coalitions Republicans put together, if you didn't see that coming, this book is for you. And it's continued on in commercial goods, the NFL, Dick's Sporting Goods. You can see commerce is being disrupted by the same coalition, and the book helps you see a window into that as well.
So, if that's true, you would think that West Virginia is going to become red, but it may not. I mean, Manchin is very popular in his home state. It's very tough to read.
It is incredibly difficult to sort out at this point. I would say look maybe in August and September and see what kind of campaigns that they're running and what they are saying that is appealing to voters. They want to talk about the economy. They still always want to talk about the economy and how they're treated with respect. A big part of this is that this is a culture that feels as though it has not been respected.
Forgotten men and women
and
of
not
America,
just by
right?
politics, but by big business and by sports and by sort of everything that we do in the world. And their impact is well beyond the ballot box. And that's why I think it's so important that people read the book, because I think they need to understand there is a movement going on, and we're still not listening to what it's telling us.
You know what I'm curious about is what happens. We talk so much about the divisiveness in the country, but what you see is the left going further left for sure, and you see the right, this Trump phenomenon where you see all these guys, want to be the Trumpiest that they can. Then you've got a lot of people in the middle who sort of want to go back to where things were. I think mostly more Republican candidates who maybe like that middle zone. How do you see it shaking out? Are we going to have 3 parties potentially?
Well, you know, we did a survey for this book of Trump voters in the 5 states in the Rust Belt that had flipped from Obama to Trump. And by far, 89% of them blame both parties for the dysfunction in Washington. 73% of them say big businesses can't be trusted to make good decisions for workers. And so there is a populist fusion that says big government, big business, it's both bad. And we're wait and see. And a huge number of Trump's voters in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Iowa and Wisconsin and Michigan, where we worked, those voters had voted for Obama twice. And they didn't get what they wanted from President Obama, and they were willing to break decades of family party tradition to switch. We have those stories in the book, and I think if you want to understand sort of the motivation and the thought process of how people could switch from Barack Obama to Donald Trump, this is the book for you.